Now I'm hitting go live.
Forgot what those buttons were.
Yeah. All right. I think we're live. It's Tuesday, September 17th, 2024. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geek Nights. Tonight, we are back, and we're talking about friends versus friends. I'd say at least 5 different things happened in an order that, caused the longest hiatus we've ever had on Geek Nights.
Well, I mean, there was a continuous hiatus, but there was also, lots of sparseness of episodes due to continuous repeated events, right?
Yep. But it was we had this cadence of things just kept coming up, and it was alternating which one of us would get waylaid. You got the COVID, but then we also get the COVID, but then we got a work trip, but then you got a work trip, and then I got to miss PAX, but you go to PAX, and it kept happening. And then the few nights we're in the middle of all that, we were like, yeah, we can do a show, but I'm going to a concert, or you're going to a concert, and we're both going to different concerts.
I'll just summarize that. I went to PAX West.
Yep.
And then I didn't want to come back to New York because I had to go to Santa Barbara for work a week later. So I didn't want to go back to New York and then back to Santa Barbara and then back to New York. So I tricked my work. And my coworkers are worldwide, but the place on earth with the most coworkers is Portland, Oregon, conveniently. So I tricked my work, and I got basically saved time and money by going to Portland for a few days, and then going to Santa Barbara, and then going to New York. So instead of 4 flights where I had to pay for 2 flights, it was 2 flights, and I had to pay for 1 flight. So that was a good deal. The bad deal, I lost a lot of money on a PAX hotel room that Rim didn't stay in.
Yep.
That was real expensive. So there goes all the money I saved.
Well, even worse, my fear is if I miss one more PAX that you go to, we are tied again on PAXs attended.
I'll say it was the PAX was a good PAX. It was more busy than the previous West, but not as busy and crowded as, the peak PAX. There was some excellentness, though, especially the birthday panel. I think you might be able to still watch that birthday panel somewhere. It was an excellent PAX 20th birthday party. Portland, Oregon, where I had never been before, is not too bad, but, not that great either.
Yeah,
it's kind of a...
I'm going to point out, you're a New Yorker, you live in New York. Pretty much every square inch of Earth that is not a tropical beach, if a New Yorker goes there, we're going to be like, it's all right.
I'll just say that, everything closes early there. And at least in the area that I was in, which was just across the water from the downtown area, sort of like staying across the bridge from MagFest.
I know where you were staying then.
Yeah, it was sort of like that. That area was very low on basic amenities, like, say, convenience stores and laundromats. I had to use many public transportations to get to anything from the hotel area, or, and yeah, you know how in cyberpunk novels, they'll always, I always, Spider-Man 2099, right? Where the rich people live uptown, which is literally up, like the Jetsons, and the poor people live downtown, which is literally down, right? That's a lie. Portland, Oregon shows that it's just a checkerboard, right? Where it's literally, it's like fancy apartment building, leasing now, tent on the sidewalk, outside apartment building, next to abandoned lot, next to perfectly fine house, next to fancy apartment. It's that's how it is. It's like you're playing SimCity, and one square of SimCity 2000 is looks like dirt. And the next one is green and has birds flying.
Not for nothing, but I've spent a lot of time in Mumbai, and I remember the first time I went there, I was staying in a 5-star luxury hotel because that's where the work event I was doing was at. And from my hotel window, I could see basically a favela that was adjacent.
But that's like a district. That's a separation. This is if it's literally on the same block, every other thing is wealthy and every other thing is not wealthy. and it's like that. It was just so everywhere. And that was Portland. And then Santa Barbara is actually kind of a nice beachy place that I don't know why there weren't more tourists there, because it was wow, look at these beaches. And also, look, everything in the town had like, nice architecture, and there was even one big mega street, State Street, that was like a no car street that had all the good stuff on it.
Ooh.
So it's
I've never
like
been to Santa Barbara.
it's just like one town north of LA, and it's like, hey, why aren't people here more?
I've
Is
never
it
been
this
to LA
university?
either, except inside of the airport on my way to Australia.
I was into LA once, which is late last year. But so that's Santa Barbara. Not too bad, really, actually.
Yeah, now we're back doing Geek Nights. The listener is no longer subjected to a small series of Rim doing solo episodes where I talk about something that's stuck in my craw. Though I am going to turn that into a regular thing, like every other Friday. I actually made a queue of episodes to follow up on because it was kind of fun. So yeah, I guess we should get right into it because whatever happened between the last Geek Nights episode and now is just going to disappear from our minds forever.
I may remember some things and go into greater detail about some things that happened.
Nah, I played a lot of video games and saw some good shows, but in some news, so of course, PAX Unplugged is coming up faster than you think. It is in December 6th through 8th in
Shouldn't we
Philly.
save that for the meta moment?
I'm just talking about news because PAX
Okay.
Unplugged, which is happening on those dates, they have announced their keynote speaker. And the keynote speaker looks like a good one. It's Elizabeth Hargrave. And if you don't know who that is the designer of Wingspan, among other games.
Yeah. Finally, an actual game designer doing the PAX Unplugged keynote and not CEO or marketing guy. Or it's like,
Or Molyneux trying to sell Populous to us again.
right. But it's like, I mean, at least, yeah, he's not very good, but at least he is a creator of games to some extent.
True.
Right?
That
It's
is true.
You should not, if you are going to have a conference, you should always have a person who is actually doing the work, right, of whatever the conference is. If it's a plumbing conference, you shouldn't have someone who owns a plumbing supply company as the keynote speaker. They might do a panel that might help educate about plumbing supply.
But the keynote should be like Mario.
Right. But exactly. The keynote speaker should always be a plumber at the plumbing conference, unless it's the plumbing supply conference. That would be different, right? So if it's a gaming conference convention, the person doing the keynote should be a player of games, right? Like a not just any old player of games, but like a professional player of games, right? Like
or at least a noteworthy one.
Right, a noteworthy player of games or a noteworthy creator of games, and not a boss of creators of games.
You know what would be a good keynote for PAX, actually? Because it's a game. LeBron.
Yeah, it would.
Yeah.
I say this, right? I say this even as Reggie did the keynote, right, a couple years ago, right? It's like, yeah, he was okay, but even so.
I mean, I learned things from
Reggie is a seller of games.
Yeah, I learned things from
He's
Reggie's
a player
keynote,
of games.
but I did not learn anything about games from Reggie's keynote. I learned a lot about Panda Express and management. But yeah, PAX Unplugged is going to be great, but the one warning I'll give you all is that if you're going to PAX Unplugged, one, if you didn't get your hotel, like, good luck, because Philly doesn't have that many hotels near the con. And two, PAX Unplugged, at least last year, for a bunch of reasons, was, I think, the most crowded PAX I have ever been to. So I don't know what PAX Unplugged will be like, but we'll be doing a ton of content at it. Details TBD that we'll talk about in the meta moment in the future. So you got any news?
Yeah, it's not really kind of a news because, I mean, there's like 10, if you consider, hey, I saw this new game is coming out soon. There's 50 billion newses. I saw so many games and I've played so many new games. It's just, oh my God. But there was this article that came out, I guess, even before all these shenanigans, but in the big gap of no Geek Nights there. Ye old Richard Garfield, magic creator, who should do a PAX Unplugged keynote. He wrote this thing basically saying, hey, there's a stigma about, we've done episodes about, I think it was a very early Geek Nights episode about handicaps in games, right? Where it's like, yeah, the players, you have an air hockey problem. There's an imbalance between the players' skill levels in a mostly skill-based game. But you still want to play with these people together. What do you do? And it's like you handicap, golf, bowling are usually the ones that have it built in.
Yep.
But in Go, you put some stones out to start with, right? And some people, I guess for pride or other psychological human emotional reasons, often don't like this, right? For various reasons. I guess it makes you you feel like you're inferior or you're.
I think it edges into the same thing we talk about with in any matchmaking system that has platinum, gold, whatever. There's always that second to last tier, silver, the scrubs, the people who get extra bent out of shape about their own perception of how good they are. I think it's rare the kind of gamer like us who, one, enjoys losing a lot, and two, make it hard for me. I really want to try as hard as possible in games.
Yeah. But he wrote this whole thing where it's hey, listen, it's not a handicap. It's not a, shenanigans, right? You're playing on hard mode. That's what you're doing, right? It's the person who is very good, right? Or it might not even be that the person is very good. For example, you might remember Keyforge, a game with, pluses and negatives, but in Keyforge, you couldn't really change your deck, right? And so you would know that you would eventually learn the deck that you own, and you would know hey, that guy's deck is much stronger than my deck. And you had this sort of wagering bidding system at the start of the game where you could sort of be yeah, you'll go up some number of, I forget, seals or keys or whatever it was.
Chains, I don't remember.
Chains, it was the chain system.
That game, I kind of bounced off of it. I think I played it 3 times ever.
I'm just saying, but it had that chain system, which is basically not handicapping the players, but giving a handicap or a boost to the deck that the players had already determined was a weaker deck to make it an even battle, even though, the decks were out of balance, right? And so it doesn't always have to be about player skill, but he's yeah, look, if you just reframe it as the person, whichever side is favored too heavily, is going to instead play on hard mode to balance things out rather than changing the rules of the game, breaking the game, playing a different game, finding different players, etc. Right? You could do this instead. And if you think about it that way, you could avoid that sort of human emotional avergence to doing this in the first place.
So I don't think we have video of this panel, but this was an ancient GeekNights panel we did. We did 2 different panels where we talked about Dance Dance Revolution a lot. Dance Dance Revolution does this really well because 2 people can play the same song next to each other, and if I pick Maniac mode and our friend picks Basic mode, we're playing the same song, we're getting the same scoring metrics, we can interact with each other, but yet I got way more arrows to hit. I'm playing on hard mode, and that
you don't really interact, but you can get it's possible for both players to get S or F, right?
Yep.
So even on basic mode, if you can hit everything, you can get S.
You both get ranked, and you get the side effect of what DDR, the brilliant part of DDR was that, in arcades, if you mess up the song, it stops and you lose your quarter. That's how the game works. You got to beat the song. Just it's an arcade machine.
Depends how the machine is configured. But
I feel like machines started to back away from that in later eras. But I digress.
That is one of the I think it's just arcade owners, right? But that is one of the configurations you can set.
But in that scenario, the player who's playing on easier mode could be the one who keeps the song going and keeps the hard mode player alive. And I witnessed that feeling make someone who's learning DDR playing in basic mode really enjoy themselves next to the expert. It's a good game design calling it hard mode.
Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Yeah. So
I think the lesson is that if I make a game, if that ever happens,
build hard mode in the rules.
Is that in your instruction book, if you're going to put in some sort of handicapping rules, you should write the words hard mode, right? You shouldn't write the word handicap or anything else of that nature. Just write hard mode and be and phrase it in such a way to be look, if there's some sort of imbalance, then here is a system by which you can correct that.
Exactly.
And you can look, for whatever flaws Keyforge has, go read the chains rules in Keyforge as a reference.
So another little news, there's a bunch of them. I'm just going to link to one because it's a kind of big one. Microsoft laid off another 650 people from games. And I was looking at the stats. This total now, since Microsoft bought Activision Blizzard in 2023, they have laid off 2,550 gaming staff.
Mm-hmm.
But the current round, it's interesting because they're not canceling projects, at least projects have been publicly announced. They're just like laying off staff. And I haven't dug yet into like exactly what areas they're laying off. And based on this article, it's mostly corporate functions, support functions, and things around the business itself of gaming. So they might be keeping some of the game developers and designers, but despite that statement, in the gaming circles I'm in Discords, all the people who said, hey, I got laid off, were like primary game maker people and were not working in the corporate side. But that's a small sample size, so I can't necessarily extrapolate from it. But I think the broader story is that gaming, especially like AAA gaming, has not been healthy for like ever. Yeah. At any point.
We didn't talk about the Sony, the Concord, did we, on Geek Nights?
Oh, that right, happened. Sony Concord. We did a whole episode on that.
Right. So if you don't know, Sony spent many, many years, at least 8 years. There's various reports, but many years, and purportedly a lot of money. I've heard reports in the hundreds of millions of dollars. I've also heard people say billions. I don't know what the real number is, but hundreds of millions sounds right. At least one or two of those. And on making this one game, which is basically a direct competitor to Overwatch.
Yep.
It was, that kind of game exactly, called Concord. And they put it out, and it bombed so hard. People were pointing out that the terrible Lord of the Rings Gollum game, which is sort of like the worst game of the year that was, from a big studio, that this game did worse than that. And so what Sony did was, days after the release, when they saw that it was bombing so hard, they're like, well, it's a multiplayer game, so if it bombs, there's no one to play it. So we'll just refund everyone's money and we'll try again, which means they're going to make it free to play and do some bullshit, and it probably still won't work.
Yep, and there's so much to unpack about this that it would almost warrant a longer segment in a future episode as we see experts diving into all the gory details. The topics range from how do you even launch a new property to what do you do when you start designing something new and another studio just literally beats you to the punch and releases something better before you finish your game, to can you sell games for money, or is free to play the only way to make a multiplayer game go? There's a discourse on where and how a competitive scene can exist in a game that is mass popular. Like this hits a cross section of every hot, fucked up topic in AAA multiplayer game design and game studios. Mm-hmm. Even just Googling for it right now in the little like generated thing on the side, it says about this game, 4% of people liked this video game.
Yeah. I just, always like to point out that, like, hey, Sony has made the PlayStation, and it's obviously been wildly successful as a console over its history, right? But if you look, it's like, hey, what games has even not even like developed? We're talking about like published by Sony, right? So the games that would be considered like first party Sony titles. And it's like, there are some games out there that are first party, PlayStation games that are actually, quite unique and interesting and noteworthy. I know the Uncharted's and The Last of Us are very popular, but I don't think that those are really unique. They're just popular game, right? You got your, I don't know, Spyro the Dragons might count. Possibly,
I guess.
The Jack and Daxters and the Crash Bandicoots, right, of the world.
I guess I don't think it's always been a long trend that I don't think of a lot of specific intellectual properties when I think about Sony's gaming console.
Exactly, right? And that's what there's the Little Big Planets and the new Astrobot one are sort of in the same vein, right? Where it's like I would play those if they were on a Switch, but but the point is that like it's not like, even Sega had games that people, right? It's like, I feel like people buy PlayStations and they're never buying them for Sony games. Very rarely. They're always buying them for these strong third-party titles.
And I feel like that's a dangerous business to be in, because eventually Microsoft just sort of makes the generic platforms and Steam's out there.
Well, they've tried to do, no, I don't think Microsoft doesn't worry. I think it's just that, computers, right? It's like, gaming computers used to be that in other countries where consoles were hard to get or too expensive, the PCs were always dominant. And I don't have numbers. I'm pretty sure PlayStations are still selling wildly all over, especially they got that new PS5 Pro thing going out. But you see a lot more gaming people with, gaming PCs going down in, the US and the console dominant countries. And so
well, part of that is there was a long era where the consoles were better suited to high quality games compared to the computers that most people had access to. But we're way past that point. Like, you can build a gaming PC that'll work and play pretty much any game that's out there perfectly acceptably for like well under $1,000 if you are clever. Like, it's not.
There's a lot of people out there who are just selling gaming PCs that are already put together, and they're selling better than they used to.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's like, and the other thing is Sony itself is putting more of its games out on PC. You can go on Steam, and there's Sony games. Games that used to be PlayStation exclusives are now on there.
Does that foretell the end of the PlayStation console in the long run if Sony just starts putting the games out?
I don't think so. I think that it'll still sell, right? But I just think that like Sony, it's like in terms of making games has some issues, right?
But anyway, things of the day. I literally found this kind of randomly, and it got stuck in my head, and I find it really funny, but I got to preface it a little bit. So if you don't live in a place where these plants exist, there's something called a cattail. And if you go, they grow in like
it looks like a
swamp
hot
areas.
dog on a stick.
Yeah, like it looks like a corn dog. Like it just looks like a corn dog out in the wild. And when I was a kid in the Cub Scouts, a very common prank to play on kids who didn't know anything about the wilderness was to try to convince them that's where corn dogs come from or that they're edible in some way, because they're not dangerous. But if you bite into a cattail, 1, do not do this. 2, they basically explode like a bomb of cotton that will fill your mouth and choke you so fast, it's hilarious. Like, the violence with which they explode into this cotton puff is shocking if you aren't familiar with cattails. Whatever you're thinking, it's more than that. So this video is a very short little song, and I guess it's a little cute kobold character singing about how cattails should be edible, and it sucks that they're not, and I want to bite them, and it's really cute.
Now, what you should do is get a hot dog on a stick and put it out amongst the cattails, and then you go and eat one, and you offer one to your friend.
That's the pro move.
That is not a hot dog.
That's the equivalent of the one glass of wine that's not poisoned in the movie.
Or if you're, that kind of relative who's going to be silly, right? Like an old funny grandpa, and kid asks, hey, where do hot dogs come from? You show him some cattail photos.
Like the famous, what was it, National Geographic?
Oh, yes, they grow on the hot dog plants out in the swamp.
Wasn't it National Geographic that did the April Fools one year that was like the spaghetti trees? And to this day, there are people who will cite that.
I do not know about the spaghetti tree.
The listener pointed out God of War. I know some people who buy PlayStation solely for God of War.
Yeah. It's a single-player game that you play once and then...
So you got to think of the
also,
day.
aren't those coming out on PC now? Also?
I've never played a God of War because they're not in my bag.
It's that painted, the guy with the paint all over him who chops people up.
I like competitive multiplayer games. I like Civilization games, and I like 100-hour multiplayer co-op RPGs, and I like indie games with bad
I'm not
graphics.
opposed to playing a God of War. I'm just not going to go out of my way and spend money to play one.
Yeah, or you know what? The other way I'll put it. If I did not have a job and yet could live my life, I would play a lot of video games that I'm not playing today.
Oh, yeah, probably. All right, thing of the day. So, people, if you're not familiar with the demo scene, just really quickly, people take old, low-powered electronic devices, usually computers, and they find clever ways to write software for those computers, to make the computers do things that would be otherwise shockingly impossible for such low-powered hardware. The demo scene was a big deal, but it's still a big deal. People are still doing demos even today. There's lots of conferences and there's, competitions and all sorts of things. So 2 years ago, someone did a demo called Area 5150, which was maybe one of the best demos there I've seen. Or maybe, I don't know what other, I'm not that deep in the demo scene, so I don't feel confident in saying best ever, but of the ones I've seen, which is a large portion, this is one of the most impressive. They got an IBM 8080, so not a 186, 286, a 086, not even 6. The 6 isn't there yet. And then it has a CGA video card, not even VGA.
CGA. My first interaction with computers was at least VGA.
Yeah. And so usually the kind of graphics that can display are things like Commander Keen with a limited color palette where it's just like yellow, pink, blue, white, black, and that's it. And so they took that computer with no other modifications, right? And they got it to do this, right? 32, lots of colors at a time, way higher resolution than it has any business doing. The overscan is like gone, even though that should be that border around the screen that you can't mess with because of overscan. They get rid of that and they draw things there and make stuff happen there. It's completely wild. But the thing of the day is not just the demo. It is this other video visiting Area 5150, investigating a PC demo, where this person goes over the demo and explains to you what the hell is going on, which is very necessary for you to get a full appreciation of what the limits are of the very weak-ass computer they used and how they overcame them with very clever techniques. And I think, that's sort of like the, essential to appreciating any demo. Because, like, if you just watch this demo and you don't fully understand how weak that computer is and what it normally does, it'll just be like, oh, who cares that the computer's doing this? That looks kind of crappy.
It would be like if a regular old Atari 2600 animated something that looked like a Pixar movie, and you're just looking at it like...
It would be like if somebody... right, pulled up on like a 3-wheeled rusty tricycle to the Tour de France
and won.
And they're not going to win, obviously, right? But they somehow finish the race. Like they cross the finish line, maybe even ahead of one person.
It's like a Pine Box Derby car that somehow it's 70 miles an hour.
Right. It's like, that's what this is.
So in the meta moment, we got to catch up on a lot of stuff. So I got to pick the selection of which pages of the collected Movement Troll works we're going to read as our next book club book.
I wish you would have told me when I was in Portland, because they have the bookstore there that is, I cannot deny, better than any bookstore I may have been to.
Ooh, that's a good point. When I was in Portland, I spent a lot of time there was a lot of bookstores around.
Well, specifically Powell's Books, which is like, it was the most crowded I've seen any bookstore, but also... the best?
More crowded than Trident?
If you opened... oh, yeah. Trident's got nothing on it. Are you kidding me? It's not even close.
All right. We're going to be at PAX Unplugged, of course. A listener already said they're going to be at PAX Unplugged. Try to find us. Try to play a game. But I'll warn you, we will likely be doing a panel or two. We will likely be doing a learn and play or two, and there's a good chance we'll be enforcing. So Godspeed if you want to try to find us at PAX Unplugged, because it's only 3 days. Otherwise, we're going to try to do the normal Geek Night schedule for the foreseeable future. I don't know what else we got to give us a week or so to get back into our normal cadence of things.
Yeah, is there any other meta moments that I could think of? Not really.
No. Just if you didn't listen to or watch any of the handful of episodes I did while Scott was gone, I'll do a little stinger bit at the end about those. But basically, I did some solo episodes and I'm going to keep these up. I want to do at least 1 or 2 a month, like on a Friday or something. But basically what I'm doing is I'm just going to pick something where I got some idea, and I'm just going to get my idea out there. Like, here's what I'm thinking. And my goal is I want the listener to tell me why my idea is stupid and where I'm wrong, or point me at like how to learn this thing better, and just go from there and see if I can either get a working knowledge of a specific part of quantum mechanics I'm interested in, or just decide that Roger Penrose is right and I'm wrong and dumb and I should stop trying to be smarter than him. So let's get into it, because we have played a new game, and I like this game a lot. This game is called Friends versus Friends. Came out in 2023. It came out of a little indie studio called Raw Fury that's been around for about a decade. They actually made one of these small Moomin Troll games that came out this year. Snufkin, Melody of Moomin Valley, which is on my wish list because I want to play it, and it's on the Switch. I just haven't played it yet.
I saw Friends versus Friends when it was like being announced and when it first came out, and I added it to my wish list, and it was like very interested because I was like, oh, it has things I like. It is an FPS, but it's only multiplayer, but it's got kind of retro-ish, but not totally retro-ish, really stylish graphics and characters going on. And you play it with very small numbers of people, like 1-1, 2-2, or 3-3, mostly 1-1.
Yep.
Right?
2-2 seems like the sweet spot.
It does, yeah. And it involves cards, right?
Yep.
Is you have cards in your hand, and it's sort of like a deck builder as well as an FPS at the same time. I don't know of any other game that does that. It is unique in that regard, combining those two things as far as I'm aware, and I know of many games.
And
so
that combination also leads to like what I fundamentally like about it the most. But the last major attribute you should know, until October 1st, this $10 game is on sale for $2.49 on Steam. I have spent more money on like dropping money by accident.
Yeah, so I wish listed the game and I said, yep, I want to play that game, but I got to follow my policy of only buy a game the moment I'm going to install and play it. And then a friend was like, hey, I played this game, and I'm like, oh, I remember that game. That was on my list of games that I want to play, but will not install and buy until the moment I am going to play them. Let us meet the moment. And we met the moment, and I played Friends versus Friends, and now more friends have come to play Friends versus Friends, and we're getting our money's worth. We're getting more than our money's worth.
Yeah, well, because I saw you two talk about it on 2 non-consecutive occasions, so I was like, I'm going to play it right now, and I just played it, and then I got one of our other friends to play it, and now we've got enough people to get like a 3v3 going, no problem, just in like our one Discord.
So here's how the game works. So you buy the game for a couple bucks.
Yep.
And you join a battle. First you got to make a deck. You get a deck to start with, and you can, as you play, you're going to get more currency, and you can open packs and all this stuff. But you can't spend any money to do this. It's pure grind. It's grind only to upgrade your deck.
And it's fairly automatic grind. Just playing will get you everything over time. You can get it a little faster if you...
So, I mean, you are at somewhat of a disadvantage to people who've been playing longer, but you're at a skill disadvantage to them anyway, because even if we swapped accounts and I got an account that was mega old and had every card and fully leveled up, I would lose to someone with a brand new account who knew what the fuck they were doing.
Penny fucking steamrolled me. And it wasn't cards, it was headshots.
Exactly. I'm bad at the headshots. So
I got better at the headshots, and it made me better at Overwatch headshots.
Right. But you build a deck, and you spawn, and you have a weapon. There's melee weapons and ranged weapons of various kinds. And you can flip through the cards in your hand, left or right, and then you can use cards. And you use a card, and the card does what it says. Some of the cards are boring, like give me more health, or temporarily put on some armor, or make my head small for a little while so it's hard to hit me in the head. Things of that nature that are kind of obvious for an FPS. Some cards are drop this weapon on the ground, so I now have a different, better weapon than the one I came with. There's no weapons lying around the levels, right? But now you got the interesting cards. There's one that's like, all right, cover me in an invincible shield of ice. I can't move. I can see. I can't shoot, but at least I'll live a little longer. And so if a teammate comes or my opponent has to reload or something, I'll get a chance and I won't die right at this moment.
Or drop a turret and now you've just got a turret that's fighting with you. Or hot potato, play this card, it appears in the other person's hand. If they don't play the card in the next 5 seconds, it blows up and then they play it back to you and then you've got 5 seconds and this just goes on until someone bites
There's
it.
a card that's like, all right, use this card. Now, whenever you use a card, it throws a bomb. And so you fill your hand, you got another card that's like a lottery card that's like 1 in a zillion chance for something good to happen. But if something bad happens, your hand fills with garbage cards, and you have to use the garbage cards to get rid of them. But if you got the bomb card, all those garbage cards are now bombs.
Yep. What this leads to is the game's just natively fun, and the cards are natively fun, but you can make combos with the cards, and it's not 100% deterministic. Like, you get to do what you wanted because it's like Magic. There's a minimum deck size, and there's also what we called it when I was playing with other people while you were away, a maximum tonnage, like an old mech warrior, because you can use a maximum number of points and a minimum number of cards. You can have more cards, but there's a limit on how powerful all the cards in your deck can be, and you draw the cards over the course of the match, so it's not like you're always going to get your combo.
In the first round, you draw a few cards randomly. You can't just pick which ones from your deck you're going to get, so you only have access to the ones you've drawn. If you don't use some, you'll still have them in the next round. So you can try to get your combo that way, but like if you got one card in the combo, don't use it until you get the other card, and then you'll get a win during some round.
Or you make the calculus of like, do I think I can win this one? Should I use another card to push it over the line? Or am I fucked? Should I just save my cards, try to win if I can, and just win the next round?
Exactly. So there's so many interesting things you can do. The most basic thing I did, which is just really straightforward and easy, was I had a card. I think you'll get it when you start the game. That's like, freeze your opponent's weapon for a limited time.
Oh, that one's so good.
So they can't shoot. And it's like, oh, I'll just hide. And then when they get close, I can freeze. And it's like, I don't have to aim that shit.
But then you combo that with another card, bullet time, slows everybody down. And for like 6 seconds, the game is just in super slow motion. So you do them both. Now they can't shoot you. You can shoot them. And everyone's moving in slow motion. I hope you can click on that head. Like,
the other card that worked very well for me was the Ninja Log, which is basically...
Ooh, I like that one a lot.
It's basically when the next attack hits you, it doesn't hit you. Instead, a log appears like fucking Naruto, right? And you didn't get hit by that first attack. So this really helps with my poor reaction time of old man hand, because someone shoots me first, and now, I'm shooting at them and they're shooting at me, and on a sort of equal timing, because their advantage of seeing me first has now been eliminated.
Yep.
And now it's just going to come down to, I guess, the accuracy of the following shots rather than me losing because I got shot first. The Ninja Log protected me.
Now, the primary gameplay beyond the cards, because the cards are real fun, like they make the game, but the
cards are almost half the game.
Yeah, but the game fundamentally is a competitive first-person shooter, like duels, like best of 5, best of 3 matches, where you're just trying to kill the other people, shoot them in the head, sneaking around the map. There's a bunch of different maps. The maps are all wildly different in what's going on. They all got fun stuff to interact with. Like every map, like one of them is a bunch of cars driving down the highway. One of them is a subway station. One of them is like a theater with a bunch of stuff in it. I really like the one that has the 4 colors, the reality one, like the maze with the 4 color areas, because if you look up, there's a Jumbotron that shows a camera pointed at the other areas, so people can't hide from you that easily.
I like the one with the swimming pools, because the water can do lots of fun, unexpected things. There's also the one that's just like a tiny island with a mountain in the middle of it.
I love to jump up on top of the mountain and just throw a bunch of turrets everywhere.
Right. It's like, do you get up on top of the mountain or do you go around the side? It's like the advantage of height, but then you can be seen from all sides. Whereas if you're on only one side, they can only see you if they're at the top or on the same side as you.
What did Penny do to me?
And you still have the water thing going on as well.
3 times. Like I thought it was even fine. Then they play like, first she's got the I move slower. And then she's moving faster. And then she's got a katana. So I'm just fucked. Like I can't get away.
Yep.
The matches are crazy quick. Like a couple minutes unless it's like a really tense, long, sneaky standoff.
So even when I go and play against randos online and just get completely slaughtered every single match, they're so fast that it really doesn't bother me so much. And as long as I do something, I'm still earning and upgrading my cards in my deck and getting new cards. So it's like, okay, I'm just sort of learning the game, practicing, losing a whole bunch because I'm terrible, but I'm upgrading my deck, which will and practicing, which hopefully I will improve slowly over time.
So the game distills some of the FPS stuff, too, that I appreciate, in that you're either running or crouching. If you're running, you make footstep noises. If you're crouching, you move a lot slower, and you don't make footstep noises. They just got rid of that, like, walk in the middle that a lot of FPSs have had forever because it doesn't add anything to the game. Like, every aspect is distilled to you are playing a fast duel FPS with cards with your friends. Like, and what it evokes... Like, the thing that I think I like about this game the most is that it feels a lot like how it felt when I was in high school and I would go to a weird Quake server with some of my friends and we'd play weird mods against each other. Like, it feels like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the cards sort of bring in the randomness of modding and nonsense, and it lets nonsense happen. So it isn't just a game of clicking on the heads, but at the same time... If you're better at FPSs, you will win a lot more often. FPS skills are 80% of the game. Card management is 20% in terms of actually winning.
So let's talk about some things other than that are in the game but aren't part of the game. So there's a lobby in the game, which disappointingly is only a solo lobby. You can't. It's basically like you could just use the menus to customize your deck and do all that stuff, or you can walk around this little area, which is like sort of a strip mall with a laundromat and a diner and various businesses.
A few little hidden things to find, like some characters.
And there's all the characters of the game are there. You can switch characters this way, and it's like this really fun environment to hang out in. They don't let you hang out in it with other people, even when you're like on a team and you're gonna queue together. That's really disappointing. It would be fun to hang out in their natural selection style. Really sad. Really opposite of sad is how amazing that environment is, but also some of the specific things they've put in there. The biggest one being the fan art gallery.
Yes, yes. The fan art gallery is brilliant.
There is no beating around the bush. This is a furry game. All the characters are fur people. Deal with it. In the basement of one of the buildings, in the lobby, they constructed a gallery of all these fan arts that they've gotten, and you can go down there, and it's just in the game itself. It's not like on their website or on their social media. It's like, and if you send them fan arts, I'm got to assume that they will expand that area and include more fan arts in the game itself. So you can go down there, and it's actually quite amazing. This gallery space that's built into the game. Fantastic. I've never seen other games do that to that extent. Incredible.
Yep. The characters
S tier
also add something to the game in that they all have very different cool designs, but each one of them has a default power. It's almost like a card they always have that always gets played every round. So you can have a little bit of control over what you start with. I've been using the bird guy who always starts with the little machine gun. Like that's my main guy right now. But there's also a ton of cosmetic stuff you can do to the characters that I just haven't engaged with yet, but I feel like I will. And it seems like people are into this game really engage with that. There's one specific thing that stood out that I noticed. There's a few ways to do the multiplayer. It has a pretty good matchmaking that like just happens. You can just play with strangers. But if you want to make a password protected lobby, like in normal games, what do? You make the lobby, you either invite your friends directly through Steam or through the game, or you put a password on your named lobby and tell your friends to come into it. The way this one works, I noticed the button just says join or create game, and you can type a string of at least 6 characters. You can type any string, and if no one is playing a game with that string, you make it. So if you type, I don't know, a really funny word, and someone else has also typed that really funny word, you're in a game together now. It's not quite a password. It's something new that I have not seen this pattern in online games before, and I think it's a really good pattern. And I hope there are people out there who are making lobbies on words just for fun, or trying to find people, or like I don't know. I could see that. I want to see the emergent behavior from this design pattern specifically. But
So
like, yeah.
if
It's
you got
$2.49. Like, if you listen to Geek Nights, buy this game. I'll play it with you.
with a whole bunch of DLCs in a bundle, right?
Yep.
And the DLCs I think are just cosmetic, but who cares? They're so cheap.
Yeah.
And they're never going to do any pay to wins ever, right? It's just time grinding, and even not that much of that really. It doesn't matter that much. So, if you want to play something with a unique concept, with amazing arts and atmosphere to sort of make up for any suffering you have from losing a bunch, or maybe you want to really get good at it and have high skills in quick matches, or maybe you don't want high skills but you have enough friends. You don't need that many friends. You just need like one friend is enough.
Yep.
To play this game. You can play 1v1 and that's a full experience. 2v2
And
is
they're really different. Like 1v1 is like a really tense duel. Like, you know that feeling we used to get at RIT when you're playing like old school Counter-Strike and there's just one person alive on each team, and that like tense sneaking around standoff?
Yeah.
You
Right,
get that feeling
normally
a lot in this game.
Normally, a 1v1 FPS is just like who sees the other guy first.
Yep.
Right? And that's it. And so by adding the cards, the 1v1 actually becomes this wild game of luck and strategy and what cards did you bring, and you see what combo, how they're trying to play, or what character they've chosen. Like if they choose Tiger melee only katana guy, right? Yes, Tiger with a katana. If that doesn't sell the game, I don't know what will. If you know they're the Tiger with the katana, now you can change, right, your strategy, and so they're probably doing things to disable your guns. Right? You can do things to sort of keep them away from you, or to make yourself move faster so they can't get within range to use the katana on you and shoot them while you're running away. You have to think about that sort of thing, in these matches, and the FPS skill matters significantly enough that I suck, but it's not the only thing that matters. The other things will get you some kills here and there, and if you combine both, now you're ready for the big leagues.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, play this game. It's great. And Geek Nights should be back on its mostly regular schedule for the foreseeable future.